My parents spent my college fund on my brother's rehab. Fifth time in rehab. By the way, I found out when I got my acceptance letter and asked about the fund. Mom cried and said, "Your brother needed it more." I was 18, had $47,000 saved since I was born. Gone. Just gone. I didn't even argue, just left and figured it out. Worked through community college. Transferred. Graduated with $60,000 debt. But I did it. Brother relapsed a month after that rehab. Hey, Reddit, buckle up, because this one's going to sting. Fair warning, this isn't one of those heartwarming family reconciliation stories where everyone hugs it out at the end. This is about what happens when your parents choose your siblings' rock bottom over your future repeatedly, and then have the absolute nerve to come back asking for more. I'm 30 now, got a house, husband John, career, the whole suburban dream package. But 12 years ago, I was an 18-year-old kid holding an acceptance letter to my dream school with literally no idea that my entire future had already been mortgaged to fund my brother's 5th trip to rehab. Yeah, 5th time. Let that sink in for a second. My brother Dylan was always the family project. I'm not saying that to be mean. It's just facts. Growing up, he was the kid who needed extra attention, extra chances, extra everything. I was the low-maintenance one. The kid who did homework without being asked, showed up where I was supposed to be, didn't cause waves. Classic middle child who learns real quick that flying under the radar means less drama. Dylan was 3 years older than me. When I was in elementary school, he was already getting suspended for stupid stuff. Nothing violent, just your standard rebellious teenager nonsense. Cutting class, talking back to teachers, that kind of thing. My parents treated it like a phase. He's just expressing himself, Mom would say. He'll grow out of it. Spoiler alert, he did not grow out of it. I remember being 8 years old, sitting at the principal's office waiting for Mom to pick me up after I won some reading achievement award. Sat there for 2 hours because she forgot. She was at Dylan's school dealing with whatever he'd done that week. When she finally showed up, she was crying. Didn't even notice the certificate in my hand, just grabbed me and said, "We need to go." That became the pattern. My stuff always got bumped for Dylan's emergencies. School plays, parent-teacher conferences, even my own birthday parties got canceled or postponed because Dylan needed attention. I learned pretty quick that if I wanted something celebrated, I better not make a big deal about it because the universe would just arrange for Dylan to have a crisis at the exact same time. 4th grade, I made the honor roll for the first time. Brought home the certificate. So proud. Dad was on the phone with Dylan's guidance counselor. Didn't even look up. Just gave me a thumbs up and kept talking. That certificate went in my drawer. Never made it to the fridge like Dylan's participation trophies always did. By middle school, I'd basically raised myself, made my own lunches, did my own laundry, forged parent signatures on permission slips because asking Mom or Dad meant waiting until they weren't stressed about Dylan, which was never. My friends' parents started giving me rides places because my parents were usually dealing with family stuff. By the time I hit middle school, Dylan had moved on to bigger and better screw-ups. Got caught with substances at school. I'm keeping this vague because apparently we can't name certain things, but let's just say it wasn't exactly legal and definitely wasn't prescribed. First rehab at 16. I remember that clearly because it happened right before my 13th birthday. My birthday party got canceled because Mom and Dad were dealing with a family emergency. Dylan went to some 30-day program a few hours away. Came back, seemed fine for maybe 2 months, then right back to it. Second rehab at 17, 30 days again. This time it overlapped with my 8th grade graduation. Mom and Dad didn't come. They were at family week at the facility. I sat in that auditorium watching other kids' parents take pictures and cheer, and I just sat there. My grandma came, bless her, but it wasn't the same. I'm not trying to paint myself as some tragic figure here. Plenty of kids have it worse. But here's the thing about being the good kid in a family with a problem child. You become invisible. Not because your parents don't love you, but because the squeaky wheel gets the grease and Dylan was squeaking loud enough to wake the dead. I learned to handle my own stuff. Needed supplies for school? I figured it out. Needed a ride somewhere? I'd bike or find a friend's parent. College applications? The guidance counselor helped me with that because Mom and Dad were usually too stressed about whatever Dylan had done that week. The college fund was set up when I was born. My grandparents on Dad's side were pretty well off. And when I came into the world, they opened this education account, put in a decent chunk initially, then added to it every birthday and Christmas. By the time I was 5, there was supposedly around $20,000 in there. They did the same for Dylan, and I always just assumed that money was sitting somewhere growing, waiting for us. Grandpa passed when I was 10, Grandma when I was 15. At the funeral, she pulled me aside. She was pretty sick at that point, knew she didn't have long, and she told me, "That money is for your education. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You're going to do great things." I remember nodding, not really understanding what she meant by, "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Like, who else would the money be for? It was literally in an account with my name on it, or so I thought. Senior year rolled around. I'd worked my butt off. 3.7 GPA, decent SAT scores, nothing that would get me into Harvard, but solid enough for a good state school. I applied to 6 universities, got into 4. My top choice was the state flagship university, about 3 hours away. Good engineering program, reasonable tuition, and with the college fund, it would be totally manageable. That acceptance letter came in March. Fat envelope, all the welcome materials, orientation dates, the works. I was beyond excited, ran downstairs, waving it around like I'd won the lottery. Mom was in the kitchen. Dad was reading the paper. "I got in," I practically shouted. "Full acceptance to the engineering program." Mom's face did this weird thing like she was happy and terrified at the same time. Dad put the paper down slowly. "That's great, daughter. Really great." His voice didn't match his words. He sounded like someone had just told him his dog died. "So, we're good to use the college fund, right? I've been looking at the numbers, and with what Grandma and Grandpa set aside, plus maybe a small loan for housing, I should be totally covered." That's when the silence hit. You know that silence? The kind that makes your stomach drop before your brain catches up to what's happening. Mom started crying, just straight up tears, no warning. Dad stood up, ran his hand through his hair, this thing he does when he's stressed, and walked over to the counter. Stood there with his back to me for what felt like an hour, but was probably 30 seconds. "We need to talk about the fund," he finally said. My first thought, weirdly, was that the market had crashed or something, like maybe the money had lost value. I wasn't thinking it was gone. That didn't even occur to me as a possibility. "There's been some family expenses over the years," Dad continued. He still wasn't looking at me. Medical expenses, treatment costs, things that insurance didn't fully cover. "Okay," I said slowly. "So, how much is left?" More silence. "Dad, how much is left?" He turned around, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Nothing. It's gone." I laughed. Legitimately laughed, because that couldn't be right. $47,000. That's what my last estimate was, based on the statements Grandma had shown me years ago. 47 grand doesn't just disappear. "Gone where?" I asked, still not getting it. Mom wiped her eyes. "Your brother needed help, real help, the kind that costs." And that's when it clicked. Every single piece fell into place like the world's worst puzzle. The rehab programs, the medical expenses, the family emergency fund draining moments over the years. They'd spent my college fund on Dylan's rehab, all of it. Multiple times over, apparently, since 47 grand doesn't cover 5 separate treatment programs. "You spent my college money on Dylan's rehab?" I said it out loud just to hear how it sounded. I needed to confirm this was actually happening. "He needed it more than you," Mom said. And I swear that's a direct quote, not "we had no choice," or "we're sorry," or "we'll figure something out." Just straight up, he needed it more than you. I stood there holding my acceptance letter, this piece of paper that was supposed to be the start of everything, and I just didn't know what to say. What do you say to that? "We'll help you figure something out," Dad jumped in quickly. "Community college for 2 years, then transfer. You're smart. You'll make it work. Dylan couldn't make it work without help. You can." There it was, the golden child logic laid bare. Dylan needs help because he can't handle life. You don't need help because you can handle life. Congratulations on being functional. Here's your prize. Nothing. I didn't yell, didn't scream, didn't throw the acceptance letter in their faces, even though every muscle in my body wanted to. I just nodded. "Okay." Mom looked almost hopeful. "Yeah, okay, I'll figure it out." I walked back upstairs to my room, closed the door, sat on my bed, and started calculating. Community college tuition, manageable with a part-time job, 2 years of living at home, free but soul-crushing. Transfer to state school for years 3 and 4. Would need loans. Books, supplies, transportation, more loans. Living expenses once I transferred, even more loans. I was looking at graduating with probably $50 to $60,000 in debt for a degree that would have cost me maybe $10,000 out of pocket if I'd had the fund that was literally set up for me in my name by grandparents who wanted me to have a better shot than they did. That night at dinner, because we still had to pretend everything was normal, Dylan showed up. He'd been living with some friends across town, supposedly staying clean. He looked good, actually, healthy, happy. Mom made his favorite meal. Dad asked him about his job search. Everyone acted like we were a functional family having a normal Tuesday dinner. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there mentally calculating interest rates on student loans. "How's the college stuff going?" Dylan asked me, all casual, like he gave a single damn about my college stuff. "Good," I said. "Got into my top choice." "That's awesome. Mom and Dad must be stoked." I looked at Mom, then Dad, both of them suddenly very interested in their plates. "Yeah," I said, "real stoked." Dylan didn't know. They hadn't told him they'd spent my money, probably because he'd been high for most of those decisions, and they didn't want him to feel guilty. Can't burden the precious problem child with consequences. I moved out 2 weeks after graduation. Didn't make a big, dramatic exit. Just quietly found a room to rent near the community college, packed my stuff, and left. Mom cried. Dad looked relieved. Honestly, one less person to feel guilty around. Community college was fine. Not great, just fine. The professors were hit or miss. The facilities were outdated, and the whole vibe was just depressing. Everyone there had a story. Single moms getting degrees while working 2 jobs. Older folks going back to school after layoffs. Kids like me who couldn't afford the real deal. We were all just trying to get somewhere better. The building smelled like industrial cleaner and broken dreams. Fluorescent lights that buzzed constantly. Desks with graffiti carved into them from students who'd given up halfway through. Professors who were either amazing people genuinely trying to help or bitter folks who couldn't get jobs at real universities. No in between. I worked 30 hours a week at a warehouse loading trucks. Night shift paid an extra $2 an hour. I'd go to class during the day, sleep for a few hours in the afternoon, then work from 10 o'clock p.m. to 4 o'clock a.m., rinse and repeat. My social life consisted of nodding at the same people in the break room. The warehouse job was brutal. Moving boxes that weighed anywhere from 20 to 80 pounds, scanning labels, loading them onto trucks in specific orders. In summer, the warehouse hit 95 degrees easy. In winter, it was barely heated. My back hurt constantly. My hands were covered in cuts and bruises from sharp box edges and equipment. I'd come home at 4:30 a.m., shower, sleep until noon, then drag myself to afternoon classes. I made exactly one friend at community college. Guy named Steve, also working full-time, also broke. We'd study together in the library between shifts. He was doing nursing. I was doing engineering prerequisites. Sometimes we'd just sit there in silence, too tired to actually study, just keeping each other company so we didn't fall asleep and miss class. Steve dropped out after a year. His mom got sick. He had to go full-time at his job to help with medical bills. Last I heard, he was still working warehouses. Never got his degree. That could have been me. So easily could have been me. Transferred after 2 years. Got into the same university I'd been accepted to originally. By that point, I'd saved enough to cover 1 semester of housing. The rest went on loans, federal loans, private loans, whatever I could get approved for. Signed my name so many times on loan documents that my signature became this illegible scribble. Year 3 was brutal. Engineering coursework isn't exactly easy when you're running on 5 hours of sleep and instant ramen. Made some friends, but they were all living that normal college experience. Parties on weekends, study abroad programs, spring break trips. I was working campus security on weekends and spending breaks doing overtime at a warehouse back home. Never went home for holidays. Couldn't stomach watching Mom and Dad pretend everything was fine while Dylan bounced between jobs and girlfriends and almost getting his life together. They'd call sometimes. "You should come visit." "Nah, I'm good." Senior year, I got an internship at a manufacturing company. Paid internship. That was clutch. $12 an hour. And they liked me enough to offer a full-time position after graduation. Not glamorous entry-level engineering work, but it was a real job with benefits and a salary. Graduated in May. By August, I was working full-time. Starting salary was $48,000. Not amazing, but after years of scraping by, it felt like winning the lottery. I had my own apartment, could buy groceries without checking my bank account, and actually had health insurance. The student loan payments started 6 months later, $540 a month for 10 years. That's 65 grand total by the time you factor in interest. $65,000 because my parents decided their older son's fifth attempt at getting clean was more important than my education. I paid every month on time, never missed one, made extra payments when I could. It became this thing. Every month, I'd transfer the money and think about how this was money that shouldn't exist. This debt was completely preventable, but whatever, it was what it was. Years passed. I got promoted, met a man named John at a friend's wedding, one of the few friends from university I'd kept in touch with. He was a project manager at a construction company. Smart, funny, had his life together. We clicked immediately. Second date, he asked about my family. I gave him the highlight reel. We're not close. They made some choices I didn't agree with. We don't really talk. He didn't push it. That's what I loved about him. He got that some families are just broken in ways that can't be fixed. And that's okay. You build your own life. We got engaged after a year, married 6 months later, small wedding. His family, our friends, my Uncle Rick, who'd always been cool with me. Mom and Dad got an invitation because John thought it was the right thing to do. They came, sat in the back, left before the reception, didn't bring a gift. Dylan wasn't invited. Heard through the grapevine he was in rehab again. Number 7 or 8 by that point. Lost count. John and I bought a house when I was 29. Nothing fancy, just a 3-bedroom in a decent neighborhood, but it was ours. We'd both saved aggressively, kept our expenses low, and when the right place came up, we jumped. The day we closed, I remember standing in the empty living room thinking about how I'd done it. Despite everything, despite starting 60 grand in the hole, I'd gotten here. Paid off the last student loan 3 months before my 30th birthday, made the final payment online, clicked submit, and watched the balance go to 0. John made me a cake. We celebrated like normal people. Celebrate winning the lottery because for me, that's what it felt like. Freedom from a debt that should never have existed. 2 weeks later, Dad called. I almost didn't answer. We maybe talked twice a year, usually around major holidays, and those conversations lasted about 5 minutes of awkward small talk before we both found excuses to hang up. But I answered. Hey, daughter, how are you? Fine. You? We're okay. Listen, I need to talk to you about something. About Dylan. Of course. Why else would he call? He's not doing well. Really not doing well this time. He's been using heavy for about 6 months now. We've tried everything. Outpatient programs, support groups. Nothing's working. He needs real help. Okay, I said, because what else do you say? There's a long-term residential facility, top-rated program, 12 months, full medical and psychological support. It's his best shot. Here it comes. It costs $35,000. There it is. I laughed. Couldn't help it. Just straight up laughed into the phone. This isn't funny. Dad's voice got sharp. Your brother could die. We're talking life or death here. Where was this urgency when you spent my college fund? The words came out before I could stop them. Not angry, just factual. Where was the concern about life or death when you took $47,000 that my grandparents saved for my future and flushed it down the drain on rehab number 5? Silence on the other end. That was different, he started. How? How was it different? I was 18 with an acceptance letter and dreams and a future. And you chose him 5 times over. You chose him. Now he's 33 and you're still choosing him and you want me to what? Join the club. You turned out fine. I actually had to laugh at that. Dad, I worked night shifts loading trucks while going to school full-time. I graduated $60,000 in debt. I spent my entire 20s making loan payments on an education that should have been mostly covered by money that was literally saved for me in my name by Grandma and Grandpa who wanted me to have a shot. You know what turned out fine? My credit score, because I never missed a payment even when I had $40 in my account and a week until payday. But me, I didn't turn out fine. I turned out to spite you. We did our best. Your best was spending my college fund without even telling me until I was holding an acceptance letter. Your best was missing my high school graduation because you were at family week for Dylan's second rehab. Your best was telling an 18-year-old kid to figure it out because her brother needed the money more. That was your best. Silence again. I could hear him breathing. Heavy breaths, like he was trying not to cry, or maybe trying not to yell. Hard to tell with Dad. We'll pay you back, Dad said finally, quieter now. I laughed harder. With what money, Dad? The house you remortgaged for his last rehab? Mom's retirement that you cashed out for the one before that? Your savings that haven't existed since I was in high school? What exactly are you going to pay me back with? Good intentions? Because those don't spend. We're family, he tried. Family helps family. Family invests in family. Family protects family. Family doesn't sacrifice one kid's future for another kid's fifth second chance. Or was it sixth? I honestly lost count. But here's what I haven't lost count of. The number of times you've asked me for money. 0. Until now. Because you never asked about my life. Never asked if I was okay. Never asked if I needed help. You just assumed I'd figure it out. And I did. But now that you need something, suddenly I'm relevant. Suddenly I'm family. That's not how this works. He's your brother, and I was your daughter. I was 18 years old, holding an acceptance letter, and you looked me in the eye and told me there was nothing. Not we're sorry, not we'll figure this out together, just he needed it more than you. So I figured it out by myself, worked full-time through community college, transferred with $60,000 in debt, paid every single month for the last 7 years. Just made my final payment 3 weeks ago, $65,000 total with interest. So, no, Dad, I'm not giving you $35,000. He'll die without help, Dad said, and his voice cracked. And here's the thing, he probably wasn't wrong. Dylan probably would die without help. The success rate on treatment decreases with every failed attempt. By round 7 or 8, or wherever he was now, the odds were grim. Then he dies, I said, and I meant it. I'm not being cold, I'm being realistic. You've been enabling him for 15 years. You've bankrupted yourselves trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved. And every time, he relapses. A month after that 5th rehab, the one you paid for with my future, he was using again. This time is different. It's never different, Dad. It's the same cycle. Treatment, sobriety, relapse, repeat. And you keep feeding the cycle because you can't accept that maybe some people are just broken in ways that can't be fixed. But I'm not giving you my money. I'm not giving you my savings. I'm not mortgaging my future for his past. I did that already for years, living in that house, watching you throw everything at him while I was just expected to handle myself. Well, I handled myself, and now I'm handling my own life, and that doesn't include funding Dylan's next revolving door experience. I hung up. He called back twice. I didn't answer. 3 hours later, Mom called. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message, crying, of course. Please call us back. This is different. This is life or death. Your brother needs you. We need you. Please. Deleted it. Over the next week, my phone was constant. Texts from Dad, voicemails from Mom. Even Dylan called once. That was rich. Left this rambling message about how he was sorry for being a screw-up and he just needed one more chance and he'd pay me back somehow. Blocked all their numbers. Then they got smart. Started calling from other people's phones. A cousin I hadn't talked to in 5 years suddenly called asking how I was doing. Then, casual-like, mentioned that she'd heard Dylan was struggling and wasn't it sad how family sometimes needed support. I asked her point blank, "Did my parents ask you to call me?" She hesitated. "They mentioned you might be able to help." "I'm not helping," I said flatly. "They spent my college fund on Dylan's rehab, $47,000 that my grandparents saved for me. Gone. I graduated $60,000 in debt because of their choices. Just paid it off. So no, I'm not giving them $35,000 for round 8 or 9 or whatever number we're on. Thanks for calling, though." Hung up, blocked her too. More relatives called over the next few days. Uncle Rick, the one I actually liked, called to say he'd heard what happened and thought I should know that people were talking. Apparently, Mom and Dad had gone full victim mode to the extended family, painting me as this cold-hearted daughter who refused to help save her dying brother. "What are they saying exactly?" I asked Rick. "That Dylan's in crisis, that there's a treatment program that could save his life, that you have the money but won't help. Your mom's telling everyone you make 6 figures. Do you, by the way? Does it matter?" "Not really, but they're making it sound like you're rolling in cash and just being spiteful." I'm not rolling in cash. I make decent money. I own a house because John and I saved for years. I just paid off my student loans, loans that exist because they spent my college fund on Dylan. But none of that matters because it's not their money. It's mine. I earned it, and I'm not giving it to them. I'm not saying you should, Rick said. I'm just giving you the heads up that this is going to get messy. He was right. 2 days later, my Aunt Jennifer called, then Cousin Tommy, then another aunt whose name I barely remembered, all with variations of the same script. We're worried about Dylan. We hear you're doing well. Family helps family. What's $35,000 to you? It's his life. I got tired of explaining myself individually, so I did something I'd been thinking about for days. I wrote an email, a long, detailed, chronologically organized email. Started with the college fund set up by my grandparents. Listed every rehab with dates, every relapse with timelines, every dollar my parents spent, or at least what I could verify through conversations over the years. $47,000 from my college fund. Another $20,000 on Rehab-3. $15,000 on Rehab-4. Home equity line for Rehab-6. Attached my student loan payment history. 7 years of $540 monthly payments. Attached my final payoff confirmation from 3 weeks ago. Wrote a detailed breakdown of how I'd worked full-time through community college, transferred with massive debt, and spent my entire 20s paying for an education that should have been mostly covered by money specifically saved for me. Added screenshots too, bank statements showing my loan payments, old emails from the financial aid office, even found a photo of that acceptance letter from 12 years ago. I'd taken a picture of it before everything went sideways, back when I thought it was the start of something good. Included a timeline. Age 16, Dylan's first rehab, $12,000. Age 17, Dylan's second rehab, $15,000. Age 18, Dylan's third rehab, using my college fund, $47,000. Age 18 to 20, me working nights at a warehouse while attending community college. Age 19, Dylan's fourth rehab, $18,000 from home equity line. Age 20 to 22, me at State University, $60,000 in student loans. Age 23, Dylan's fifth rehab, $22,000, parents' remortgaged house. Age 23-30, me making $540 per month in loan payments. Age 28, Dylan's sixth rehab, $15,000. Mom cashes out retirement. Age 30, Dylan's seventh rehab, $35,000 requested, denied. I ended with this. I'm told that family helps family. I agree. Which is why I'm confused about where my family was when I was 18 and just learned my future had been sold for my brother's fifth failed attempt at sobriety. I'm told that $35,000 is nothing compared to a life. I agree. Which is why I'm confused about why my parents didn't feel my education and future were worth protecting. Dylan has been in treatment 7 times. He relapsed after every single one. I don't say this to be cruel. I say this because at some point you have to accept that some people cannot be saved, especially when they don't want to be saved. My parents have spent over $100,000 trying. They've bankrupted themselves, destroyed their retirement, remortgaged their house, and here we are again with the same request. I'm not giving them $35,000, not out of spite, not out of anger, but because I learned a long time ago that you can't save people who won't save themselves, and I refuse to set myself on fire to keep someone else warm, especially when they'll just use that warmth to relapse again in 6 months. If any of you would like to contribute to Dylan's treatment, I've done the math. $35,000 divided by our extended family of approximately 15 adults equals about $2,300 each. I'll wait here while you all send your checks. Sent it to everyone. Every aunt, uncle, cousin who'd called, CC'd my parents, hit send and closed my laptop. The response was immediate. My phone blew up with texts. Some people angry, some people sympathetic, most people silent. Aunt Jennifer, how dare you air family business like this? Cousin Tommy, this is between you and your parents. Aunt Lisa, your brother is dying and you're being petty. Uncle Rick, well, damn. But not one person, not one, offered to contribute money. Shocker. My mom sent one text, "You've broken your father's heart." I replied, "He broke mine 12 years ago. I just didn't send a mass email about it." Blocked her. Uncle Rick called the next day. That email was harsh. Was it inaccurate? No. Then it wasn't harsh. It was honest. These people have been calling me, telling me I need to help save my brother. Not one of them offered to chip in. They just wanted me to be the solution. Well, I'm not. I'm done being the solution to problems I didn't create. Your parents are pretty upset. My parents have been upset for 30 years. They'll survive. Over the next month, the calls tapered off. My parents stopped trying. The extended family went quiet. I went back to my regular life, work, home, John, planning a vacation we'd been putting off. Then 9 months later, I got a call from Uncle Rick. Dylan had overdosed. Found in his apartment by his landlord after neighbors complained about the smell. Had been dead for probably 3 days before anyone noticed. "I'm sorry," Rick said. "Yeah. Funeral's on Saturday. Your parents want to know if you'll come." "No. They really want you there. They're devastated." "I'm sure they are, but I can't mourn a relationship that ended 12 years ago. I grieved that family when I was 18, standing in my kitchen holding an acceptance letter while my mom told me my brother needed my future more than I did. This is just the conclusion everyone saw coming. It sucks, but it was inevitable." "That's really cold, Mildred." "Is it? Or is it just realistic?" Dylan was 33. He'd been using since he was 16. He'd been through 8 treatment programs. He'd overdosed before, twice that I know of. This was always going to be how it ended. And I'm not going to stand in a funeral home and pretend I'm surprised or heartbroken when everyone saw this coming for over a decade. He was your brother. He was my brother, past tense. And that's sad. But I can't fix dead any more than I could fix addicted. My parents tried that. Spent everything they had trying. It didn't work. Me being at his funeral won't change anything except making everyone uncomfortable. I didn't go. John asked if I was sure. I was. He offered to go with me for support if I changed my mind. I appreciated that, but no. The day of the funeral, we went hiking instead. Spent the afternoon in the woods, phones off, just walking. It felt right. Dylan would have hated hiking, would have complained the whole time about bugs and mud and not having signal. But I liked it, found it peaceful. Got home to 17 missed calls. Voicemails from both parents, various relatives, all saying the same thing. How dare I not show up? How heartless, how cruel, how I'd regret this. One voicemail from my dad. "Your mother is devastated. Your brother is dead, and you couldn't even show up for 2 hours. What kind of person does that?" One from Mom. "I'll never forgive you for this. Never." One from Aunt Jennifer. "You're dead to this family." Deleted them all. Blocked a few more numbers. Moved on with my life. The thing is, they wanted me at that funeral for them, not for Dylan. Dylan was past caring, but they wanted the optics of a unified family. Wanted to show everyone that despite everything, we still came together in tragedy. Wanted me to play the role of grieving sister so they could play the role of grieving parents with both children present. I refused to be a prop in their performance. John asked me one more time if I was okay. I was, genuinely. I'd done my grieving years ago. This was just the administrative end of something that died a long time ago. Weeks passed, then months. The calls stopped completely. Apparently, Aunt Jennifer's "you're dead to this family" comment was the consensus. Fine by me. I'd been functionally dead to them my whole life anyway. This was just making it official. Life went on. Got a promotion at work. John and I started talking about kids. Normal future stuff that normal people do when they're not constantly managing someone else's crisis. About 6 months after Dylan died, I got a text from my dad. It was short. "You were right about all of it. We failed you. We failed Dylan. We failed his parents. Your mother won't admit it, but I can't keep lying to myself. We spent your future trying to save your brother, and we lost both of you anyway. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I needed to say it. I don't expect you to forgive us. I don't even know if I forgive us, but you deserve better. You deserve parents who protected your future as fiercely as we tried to save your brother's life. We just didn't know how to do both, and we chose wrong. I'm sorry." I read it 3 times. Felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no sadness. Just nothing. Showed it to John. "What do you think?" I asked. He read it slowly, then looked at me. "Does it change anything?" "No." "Then it doesn't matter." He was right. It didn't matter. An apology 12 years late doesn't erase 12 years of damage, doesn't refund student loan interest, Doesn't give me back the 20s I spent working instead of living. Doesn't resurrect a relationship that died when I was 18. I didn't respond. What would I even say? Thanks for the apology. Sorry it came with a body count. There was nothing to say. The conversation was over years ago. This was just the epilogue nobody asked for. Here's what nobody tells you about being the good kid who gets sacrificed for the problem child. You don't owe anyone anything. Not your parents who made bad choices, not your sibling who couldn't get his act together, not extended family who suddenly have opinions when they smell money. You don't owe them your savings. You don't owe them your future. You don't owe them your presence at performative grief ceremonies. You especially don't owe them the emotional labor of pretending you're one big happy family when they treated you like a backup plan your entire life. People talk about family like it's this sacred bond that supersedes everything else. Like blood automatically means loyalty, support, unconditional love. But that's nonsense. Blood just means you share DNA. Family is what you build with people who actually show up for you. My parents showed up for Dylan every single time, through 7 rehabs, countless relapses, years of chaos. They showed up with money, time, emotional support, second chances, third chances, 15th chances. They didn't show up for me. Not when I needed help with college applications, not when I was working nights and barely surviving, not when I graduated, not when I got married. They showed up physically sometimes, but they weren't present. They were just going through motions while their actual attention remained on Dylan. That was their choice. They chose how to allocate their resources, and I'm choosing mine. I'm choosing peace, stability, a life I built myself without depending on anyone who once decided I was expendable. John and I eventually did have kids, 2 daughters, and I'll tell you this much. Every time I look at them, I remember that 18-year-old version of me standing in the kitchen with that acceptance letter and hearing, "Your brother needed it more." I swore that day that if I ever became a parent, I'd never make one child pay for another's mistakes. And I meant it. My girls will grow up knowing that their futures belong to them, not to anyone else's redemption arc. Sometimes I think about my parents. Wonder if they still talk about Dylan like he was just one more chance away from making it. Wonder if they ever talk about me at all. Probably not. Or maybe they do, as the daughter who turned cold, the daughter who stopped forgiving, the daughter who chose herself. If that's what they think, then so be it. Because the truth is, I stopped being their daughter the moment they decided my worth was negotiable.